Alrighty folks, so we're at stop 2 now. We're in Shevlin Park, so hopefully you successfully got here from Aubrey Butte on Google Earth and found this site. This is known as Red Tuff Gulch, which kind of gives something away, but that's fine. We've got a few goals here. Number 1, just like at the last site, we wanted to learn how to find a good fresh face, a good rock sample to look at. We've got to do that here too, but because we're in a heavily used public area, we don't want to be taking our hammers and smashing up the rocks. That would be uncool. I'm trying to show you that that would be uncool, but it's stuck. Anyways, that's uncool. So we want to be a little more discreet, and what you'll find is that if you're creative and you look hard, you can almost always find a good fresh face. Sometimes it's part of the actual outcrop, sometimes it's lying around on the ground. Sometimes you're really lucky and a geology class has been here before you and took a hammer to something. You never know. So that's goal number 1. Then goal number 2, we want to get familiar with this rock. It is tough, T-U-F-F. We learned about that in the lecture today, and we'll find that it has a lot of variation to it, but we want to start learning how to describe it. So that's really the second goal. And then our final goal here, which will probably be a separate video, is looking at this on an outcrop scale. So the whole thing, not just one sample, and thinking about how it's changing or varying. Alrighty. So with that being said, I think I'm gonna take the camera from Neil. Neil's gonna go look for a rock, I'm gonna go look for a rock, and we'll see where that takes us. All right, let's go look for a fresh face. So I'm actually gonna do this by trying to find a fresh face on the rock. Neil's gonna look around on the ground and try to find one. I'm gonna look on the rock itself and we'll see what we find. There's lots of butterflies. Alrighty, so I'm pretty up close to the rock right now, and this is a pretty good example of a fresh face. Some clues here, I'll contrast it with what we have right down here. Down here, notice there's all this orange stuff, and this is where my geologist eye sees it easily. Okay, here we go. So it kind of looks like part of the rock broke off here, almost like a scab got torn off, and you see underneath the color's different. Then if I go right around this corner, same deal. The corner where it looks like things have been torn off is white, whereas this face over here is orange. So I'm starting to pick up evidence that the orange stuff is a veneer, a surface veneer. Think of it like a skin. Here we see it again, orange veneer, and then I can literally see that orange break and become white. So this is all clues that this whiter color, the lighter color, is a fresh face, which gives us good information about this rock. Whereas the orange is something that's happening on the surface. It doesn't tell us what we want to know. All right, so this is a good opportunity for you guys to start making your descriptions of the rock. So I'm just gonna give a slow close up here and let you guys see what you see. So I'm gonna add something here. One of the hallmarks of a tuff is that it has pumice in it. Pumice is basically lava foam, and pumice is really soft. You can scratch it quite easily. So one of the things I like to do, I take my thumb and I look for something I think is pumice and I try to scratch it with my fingernails. So right here, you can hear my fingernails digging into that. You can kind of see. So that's a chunk of pumice right there. This guy right here, this huge black thing, again, I'm going to take my fingernail and I'm able to kind of chew a little chunk into it. If I take the hammer, you're really going to see it. Yeah, so you can see those little white lines on it. That's the hammer chewing in. So pumice is soft, it's easy to chew into, and that's one clue that we're seeing a tuff here. That's our first shot of that. I want to check in with Neil and see how he's doing. So Neil, what'd you find?
I found what looks like a rock that's been broken.
Okay. So why do you think that's a fresh face?
Well, we're seeing kind of an abrupt change in color. And so it looks like it's been broken off. But we're seeing kind of a sharp edge and a big color and texture change going to this kind of more consistent face.
Awesome. Yeah, I totally agree. We're seeing a rough, dark face there. We can see those edges. The fancy term is oxidation rind or a weathering rind. You can see that right there. And then over here, yeah, it's got that kind of smooth brownish color. So there's a problem with this. What we want to learn about is the rock behind us, this big outcrop. So Did you find that rock on the ground?
I did.
Yeah, so anytime we find a rock on the ground, we got to ask ourselves, did that rock come from here? Sorry, from here, from this outcrop, or did it get here some other way? And actually, a round rock like that, which we can see quite a few of around here. Let's scan the ground. There's that one that Neil found. Here's another. Here's another. Here's another. Let's find a really nice, obvious example. Oh, this big boulder right there. Round rocks mean rivers. So there used to be a river here. Presumably it was Tumalo Creek, which is now somewhere off in those trees. And it carried these round rocks in. And as it was carrying them, it knocked their edges off. So when we find round rocks at the base of an outcrop, we should be thinking river. So that is a different type of rock from somewhere else that is not representative. Neil, what do you got there?
This looks like a fresher face of maybe something that matches the outcrop a little bit better.
Okay. What do you see as some of the similarities here to the outcrop?
I'm seeing this finer matrix with other things mixed into it. Mm-hmm. And kind of some of the colors match. It looks like there's slightly different colors, but the spot especially that was exposed there. And then we can see weathered or just dirty on other pieces of the rock as well. But again, seeing that sharp change in texture and color.
Awesome. So let's go back to your description of the fresh face. I liked what you were saying there. So the word matrix basically means all the stuff that makes up the rock that's kind of hard to describe. Like you can point to a chunk there and a chunk there and a chunk there. What about all the stuff in between? That's where the word matrix is used in geology. Neil's taken a few geology classes and apparently has retained the lingo. But Neil, I was noticing something. When you're rubbing the matrix, what happened to it?
It's coming apart with a little bit of work, even with my fingernail.
What's your thumb look like right now?
Dirty.
Yep. So we were talking earlier about how tuff is a combination of chunks of rock, of pumice, and of volcanic ash. The stuff that we're seeing coming off there that Neil was rubbing with his fingernail, and that's all over his thumb, is the volcanic ash. So the matrix of a tuff, the stuff that kind of holds it all together, is the volcanic ash. And our evidence here is that it crumbles, it comes off on your fingers, all that. How about pumice? Neil, do you see any pumice on this?
I don't know.
Good question. Tell you what, try to find a chunk of pumice. I'm gonna set up a hand lens with a pumice chunk and see if we can get some good lighting on that. I think I'm gonna go over here to do it. So folks, when you're looking for pumice, what you're looking for is essentially foam, rock foam. So it has tons and tons and tons of tiny little holes in it. So right now I'm looking for a rock with lots of little holes. There's one right there. Let's see how well we can do with this. We're experimenting. So I'm gonna hold up. Yeah, that's not terrible. I can't see through the GoPro right now, so I'm not sure how well that's doing. But folks, if that didn't turn out well, I will do this again in my office and we'll see what it looks like there. Let's see if we can see any other examples. Neil, were you able to find any?
I got one, yeah.
Cool, awesome.
I don't know if you can see into that, but I can from a distance, so let's see.
There we go.
Yeah.
Cool. Alrighty, so there's another chunk of pumice. So Neil, what color are the pumices that we're seeing here?
This pumice that I found is looking pretty black.
Yeah, so folks, you have no way of knowing this, but I had never heard of black pumice before I moved to Bend. It's incredibly rare. If you look for photos of pumice on the internet, you will not find any. If you read a description of pumice in any textbook, it will never mention it being black. So I was talking earlier about how interesting and unusual the volcanism here. This is a great example. Okay, there's another chunk. So I'm gonna see if we can get that lit up. Oh man. Well, we're just gonna go super close to it. So there's a chunk of that black pumice. Lots of little frothy holes. Cool. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that we want to talk about. So when you're making your description of the tuff, given that this is the first time, I'll kind of give you guys the answer at this point. Things to talk about. One, the matrix, the volcanic ash. Our evidence for that, again, was that it weathers, or you can scratch it so easily and it falls apart. Two, it's made of it's pyroclastic. It's made of other rocks. So it's really obvious. There's chunks of rock all over here. Some of them are the inside of a volcano that got blasted out, and some of them are pumice. The pumice is that lava foam that's part of the eruption. Other things to note is whether you see any sense of order or is it purely chaotic. So this is just this chaos of rocks. We don't see any layers. Smith Rock, you'll see layers quite frequently in the tuff. So that's something we're looking for. Oh, I know the other one. Alrighty, Neil, do you remember how you can tell if a tuff is welded or non-welded? Those terms sounded all familiar to you?
They do sound familiar to me because I know Smith being welded tuff, but
yeah,
I don't know what an unwelded tuff looks like.
Gotcha. So welded versus non-welded is essentially, is it a strong hard rock or is it soft and crumbly? So the fact that this is forming a cliff above our heads, that right away tells us it's welded. But there's another really cool clue, and it's subtle, but we can see it here. So pumice, volcanic foam, is soft. It is not a strong rock. When it's in a welded tuff, it literally gets compressed and squished. So if we look at this face right in front of us and you start looking at all the black, the big black ones, that's pumice, that's pumice, that's pumice, that's pumice, that's pumice, that's pumice. Most of them are relatively flat in the same orientation. They're all kind of horizontal. You don't see a lot of things sticking straight up and down. So that's probably our best clue that we're looking at a welded tuff, is when you have flattened pumice that's all flattened in the same direction. And we have a fancy geology term for that. We call them fiamme, which is F-I-A-M-M-E, but it means flattened pumice. And this is one of those things, the more you look at this rock, the more you realize that most of the chunks in it are kind of flat in the same direction, more or less horizontal. All right, I'm gonna stop the video there.